There we go.
Okay.
So your question was kind of how much do people already know about Cloud Volumes? My guess is it's a pretty mixed bag. Some of the people in here probably have seen presentations before, but most of them are probably not super familiar. Does that fit with everybody? So they understand the concept, but not necessarily how we've implemented it or anything like that.
Okay, so let me see if I can get this thing to present appropriately. Can you see, oh, it did it, didn't it? There we go. Can you see the screen? You should see something that says HPE Cloud Volumes Summary.
Not quite. I've got 3 screens up. Let me get the right screen up on the projector here.
Okay. At least I hope you can see something that says HPE Cloud Volumes Summary.
Oh, shoot. What do we do? Yeah.
All right, great. So I'm going to go really quickly, since we've got a short little block here, through some of the core concepts for Cloud Volumes. Very quickly, what some of our enterprise features are, what some of our pricing looks like, because that's the number 1 question. People are always like, well, as a service offering, how is this priced, right? So we'll take a look at that. We'll take a look at availability, a whiteboard, and then I'm going to switch over and show you a little bit around the portal and create a Cloud Volume, show you how easily we can connect it to some compute resources. And in the interest of time, we can either keep going down that vein, or I can switch back to PowerPoint and then just show you some workflows that you can do, right? So jumping very quickly in here, a little bit about Cloud Volumes. Number 1, it's for us as an enterprise as a service offering for the cloud, we need to make sure that the storage that we're offering you in the cloud is as resilient and as secure as it is on premises, right? And to that end, you should know that the storage is hosted on Nimble storage arrays, right? We control it, so that's why it's an as-a-service offering, which means that we offer things like 256-bit AES encryption. We offer replication of encrypted volumes, as well as encrypted volume support, so you can replicate encrypted volumes to the cloud, right? We are HIPAA and high-tech compliant. We have an SOC2 Type 1 certification with the HIPAA and high-tech compliance as part of the certification process. So with Cloud Volumes, you can use it to host your PHI or any type of healthcare data that you have or research data. We fall into compliance for that. It's a multi-tenant environment. So what does that mean? That means that we are able to secure, even though you're using our storage on the back end and we're using and it's an as-a-service offering, meaning one storage device will service many customers. We're able to secure your data by tying it not just to your customer account within Cloud Volumes as a portal, but we also do double duty and we tie it specifically to your VPC and VNet. And we do that because we can control the circuits. We control the networking on the back end all the way up to your VPC or your VNet in Azure and AWS. So we know that once that either express route or VPC is established, that nothing else has access to it, right? And like I've been saying, your data is stored on HPE Nimble Storage. So everything that you've heard about the resiliency of our storage system, 6 nines of availability, InfoSight predictive analytics, our support, all of that it translates to Cloud Volumes. Any questions so far? I heard somebody almost ask a question. Nope. Okay. Some more key enterprise features, kind of moving along. Copy data management. So just like you would expect to be able to do snapshots and clones on premises, you're able to do snapshots and clones in the cloud. So you're able to set up snapshot schedules, either daily, weekly, monthly, and you're able to replicate your data from on-premises to the cloud, as well as from the cloud back to on-premises, right? So this can be a backup solution, a hybrid solution, or a DR solution for you, right? Doesn't just have to be a cloud-only solution. We have Cloud Volumes is backed by a central administrative portal. And again, because it's on our Nimble storage, it is backed by InfoSight predictive analytics. So through that central portal, which you're going to see, you get to see things like performance metrics and size metrics. And the cool thing about that is that everything then for you comes into one data management fabric, right? So your on-premises arrays as well as your Cloud Volumes are all serviced by InfoSight predictive analytics. So from a support perspective, we have a single pane of glass for your administration and planning. Okay. It's a multi-cloud service, which means you can go to Azure, AWS. In the future, we'll probably target Google Cloud. Right now, we're available on Azure and AWS, or hybrid, meaning you can have volumes on premises in the cloud. You can take data from the cloud back to on-premises, like I was talking about with replication. And you can also go from cloud to cloud. So if you want to move your data set from Azure to AWS or AWS to Azure, you can as well. There's no lock-in or egress charges for getting your data in and out. Okay. And of course, we have APIs for automation. And that's really important to us because cloud, one of the things that we found for cloud customers is that it is the sandbox for DevOps, right? So it wouldn't be good for us to have a service in the cloud without being able to support CI/CD pipelines and other development workflows. So we do have full APIs for automation. And we also have container support. We have a Docker Volume plugin for Cloud Volumes. It gives you the same functionality as the Docker Volume plugin for our Nimble storage arrays. And it supports all major container orchestrators. So whether you're using Mesos, Kubernetes, Docker, whether you're using Swarm, whether you're using the Flex Volume driver, if any of these things make sense to you, then you're in the right spot because we support it for our Cloud Volumes. So now let's take a look at some of the cost breakdowns, because this is something that always is something that we get a lot of questions about. So if you're an AWS customer, you're familiar with AWS, you're familiar with this kind of window where you get to see what you get charged from AWS. So what you will get charged for is compute, right? That's something that's owned by you, the customer. Your AWS account, your cloud compute is owned by you. So you would be charged for compute. You would be charged for your any extra VPCs that you set up. You would be charged for any S3 storage, anything that is within AWS, that's all yours, right? Now for us, customer billing from HPE, if you're a Cloud Volumes customer, what you would be charged for is Cloud Volumes as you create them, replication store, and we offer a prepay option, which is a discount of 15%. And the reason why I always say this is because when you're in the cloud, when you're in the Cloud Volumes portal and you're creating volumes or replication stores, we always give you an estimate of what the monthly cost is going to be. And that's great if you're a pay-as-you-go kind of customer, right? But if you're a prepay customer, it's just important to note that all of this is at a discount, right? When it comes to clones, we only charge for IOPS and Delta. What does that mean? So because of the way our cloning technology works, we're able to pass cost savings to you whenever you duplicate a data set. So we only charge essentially for changed blocks, right? And then snapshots, same thing, we charge for the locked-in delta. So if you have a 5 terabyte volume and you back it up with a snapshot, we don't charge you for 5 terabytes of data, right? We charge you for whatever delta is locked in to the snapshot. And then we have a support cost. And all of this information, by the way, from a breakdown, this is a real brief overview, but it's clearly spelled out in black and white in our Cloud Volumes documentation online. If you go to HPE on our website and you happen to look up Cloud Volumes or you download any of our white papers, this is like the #1 thing that's talked about because people always have questions about how billing is done in the cloud, right? Same thing for Azure. You own your compute resources in Azure. You own your resource group. You know, any other type of thing that you do in Azure, that's all yours, right? Where we come in is, once again, any Cloud Volumes you create, any replication stores, and then again, it's a prepay, clone snapshots. There is a VNet subnet charge for Azure, and that is because of the way networking works in Azure. This is a one-time charge, right? And that's different from AWS, but that is unique to the Azure setup, and then of course support. Now you're probably looking at this and you're wondering, okay, well, what about the VPC? What about the express route? You know, how do we handle egress and ingress costs there? How does that work? Well, we handle that. We actually, and that's because as part of the Cloud Volumes setup, we set up that circuit in the back end, right? So once you create your connection, once you create your express route and your connection, that is all part of the cost that we pass to you for the Cloud Volume, right? So when you take a look at the benefits, what we absorb essentially, right, and why this is such an interesting offering and so great for administration is, number one, it lowers your total cost of ownership. And one of the cool things that we have out there right now that is really easy for you to look at, and I can get the link and pass it on because I don't have it in this particular presentation, but we have a cloud, a cost estimator essentially, where you get to compare cloud volume storage versus EBS or storage that you have in Azure, right? And because we're an as a service offering, and because of the way we do the circuits and we present the storage to you, we actually have a lower TCO in general, right? The administration is handled by us, and actually the cost of the raw storage itself, when you take into account things like snapshots, take into account the ability to create clones and things like that, is actually lower, and we're pretty proud of that. Here's some of the other things that we handle. You know, replication to and from Cloud Volumes. Again, when we say there's no egress or ingress charge, that's the reality. Again, that's because it's going through our circuitry. We own the direct connect link in AWS as well as the express route in Azure. All right. So a real quick architecture whiteboard. Okay. When you create a cloud volume in HPE Cloud Volumes, right, you're able to present that to the cloud compute of your choice. So in this particular case, you know, we're going to start off for this whiteboard presenting it to an EC2 instance, right? Copy data management is through the portal. So when you create the volume itself, you set up your snapshot schedule, how you want to protect it, and that allows you to essentially use those snapshots as a form of backup or as a form of DevOps or any other tool that you want to do, so you can quickly clone those snapshots. And then those clones, which essentially create another volume in the cloud, can actually be connected right back to the original EC2 instance, to a separate EC2 instance, or it can even be connected to the other cloud. Now, this is a true shared storage solution, which means that when we present the storage, I'm going to go back one actually, when we present the storage to an instance, you are able to manipulate it just like you would storage on-prem. So you could do things like a true SQL Server failover cluster. I actually did a demo that I have recorded that I'm happy to pass on for a SQL Server on Linux failover cluster in AWS using our Cloud Volumes, right? And you can connect storage in either cloud. So if you have a volume, you can choose to connect it to AWS, you can choose to connect it to Azure, or you can switch clouds. You can go from Azure to AWS, right? So through our Cloud Volumes portal, you can provision and manage your volumes, or you could, and you can see what your cost is going to be in sort of a pay-as-you-go model. But keep in mind that you do also have the option to prepay. Think of it as buying a block of, or putting forth a block of funds for your cloud infrastructure. And then anything that you create comes out of that block at a 15% discount, right? Everything is behind InfoSight Predictive Analytics. We offer seamless integration for your hybrid environments, meaning if you have a local array with storage that you want to get it to the cloud, the on-ramp to the cloud, either moving the data set or even DR to the cloud, is as easy as setting up a replication partner, because that's all you're doing. And I can show you. Array by setting up a replication partnership. And again, both the cloud.
Hey, Diane, your sound,
analytics, which allows you to do. Oh, cutting out a little bit. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, the last 30 seconds we probably missed.
Okay. What was the last thing you heard?
You were introducing the InfoSight, that it was backed by InfoSight, was
yep.
where you headed when you started.
Right. So, and really what that means is it's a single pane of administration for the customer, right? Whether it be your cloud is as easy as setting up a replication partnership, right? And analytics from both sides, which allows you to plan for sizing, performance, etc. If you're familiar with Nimble, you're pretty familiar with InfoSight Predictive Analytics. So what does that mean? We're able to offer an enterprise-grade storage as a service for you in the cloud. We're able to give you easy mobility, so your data where you want it, where you need it. If you need it, if you happen to have a large enterprise that does DevOps in AWS, but does core infrastructure in Azure or hybrid cloud in Azure, guess what? We support it, right? And then we give you global visibility with our InfoSight Predictive Analytics and our portal, all right? So now let's really quickly jump into where is this available. Right now, when you're looking at the United States, we're available, of course, in AWS and Azure. We're available in US West 2 and US East 1 when you're talking about AWS regions, and then East US and West US 2 when you're talking about Azure regions. That little SurveyMonkey link down there, the reason why I have it there is because we are always actively getting requests for new regions, and we just decided we would tackle it by demand. And the most demanded regions happen to be in in EMEA, right? So we are planning on offering Cloud Volumes 2019 in the UK and Ireland. So for AWS, you're looking at EU West 1 region out of Ireland, EU West 1 region out of Ireland, and this should actually be EU West 2 over here, in the UK, EU West 2. And then for Azure, we have UK West as well as UK South. And of course, UK West is out of Cardiff and UK South is out of London. West 1 is out of London and, West 2 is out of London and West 1 is out of Dublin. All right, any questions?
Everybody's quiet, but their eyes are pinned to the screen, so I think you're doing okay.
Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause the sharing real quick while I switch windows on my monitor and bring up a demo environment so you can kind of take a look at things.
What do you guys think so far? Interesting? New? Are you picking up some information you hadn't had before?
Okay.
Maybe. Slight nods. Are you going to sleep?
No, don't tell me you're going to sleep. What?
They're not. Actually, they said no. So
maybe it'd be good to know if Dianne can tell us, sort of what she's going to demo and see if anybody else wants to see anything other than that.
Sure. Do you want to give us an overview, Dianne, of what you're going to demo for us first? And
yeah. So where I was planning on going. Okay, I'm going to have to stop typing and talking because I can't type and talk at the same time. So the first thing I was going to do is actually I was going to log into the Cloud Volumes portal and start there. And I was going to just show you what you see in the Cloud Volumes portal, as well as very quickly show you the help documentation. And then the first thing I was going to do is I was going to jump right into it, and I was going to create a Cloud Volume and connect it to compute.
That sounds about right.
I'm going to start there. And then after I show you how to connect a Cloud Volume to compute, I'm going to switch to an on-premises host, and I'm going to log into the on-premises array. And I'm going to show you how easy it is to set up replication. And basically, I'm just going to show you the replication relationship. Because if you're familiar with Nimble Storage and you know how to set up a replication partner, it's that easy to set up replication to Cloud Volumes and getting your data sets in Cloud Volumes. Then I was going to switch back to the portal and show you where that replication information is and how you can use it. So I was going to start with, those are usually the two big things people want to know. Hey, how do we use this Cloud Volumes? Jump right into it. What documentation do I have available? And show me about this replication thing. And then we give, time permitting, we can continue on from there. Does that sound good?
Yep, I'm getting nods, so I think we're good.
Sweet. Moving on. All right. So this is the Cloud Volumes portal, and you can access it from anywhere. As a matter of fact, I'm currently accessing it. If you're looking at this remote desktop window, this set of windows, this host right here is my on-premises host, and this host right here happens to be my host in Azure. All right. And so I've gone ahead and I've accessed the portal through my host in Azure. I could have easily accessed it from anywhere. So this kind of goes into that global visibility where you can access, just like InfoSight, you can access your Cloud Volumes information from anywhere, right? By default, you open up in the Cloud Volumes pane, and you can see I have quite a few volumes carved out for myself, right? And interestingly enough, you can see that I have them spread across AWS and Azure, okay? All right, so I have volumes connected on each side. And you can tell that they're connected, number one, because they're green here, but number two, because here's my cloud VM IP addressing, right? And where you see 2 IP addresses, well, that happens to be for a failover cluster instance. This particular set of volumes is tied to a SQL Server on Linux failover cluster, all right? So let's take a look at the information that you can see for a volume. But before I do that, I'm going to tackle documentation real quick. From the Cloud Volumes portal, if you go to Help, it's going to open up a new window. And actually, if you are interested in looking at what is available for Cloud Volumes now, or maybe even poking around about how easy or difficult it would be to set it up, and it's actually very easy, it's not difficult. You can come to the actual URL I want you to use is cloudvolumes.hpe.com/help. I'm using what's called the staging environment because I do a lot of demos, so I'm actually in a different environment from production. But cloudvolumes.hpe.com is the core URL for our Cloud Volumes. And if you go to /help, this will take you to our help, and you can kind of poke around here and see what's available, right? So I'm just going to close that.
And I'll add to that, guys. What I found is that from a documentation standpoint, as a Nimble user, you're used to going to InfoSite and going under the extras menu and going into documentation, and then there's a PDF or an online version of SQL integration or VMware integration or things like that. If you're thinking about using something like that, but you want to get your head around architecture or how do you configure it and things like that, all of that's in the help. So that's the URL you want to go find any documentation, and it'll walk you through, how do you connect a volume to a server? What's that script looks like?
Right. And it walks you through the setup. Basically, how do you register your cloud provider? How do you connect the Cloud Volumes environment account to your cloud provider account, right? It walks you through that step by step. For those of you who have questions around billing, it gives you questions about billing. And finally, if you're interested in automation, which is like part and parcel to cloud workflows, our REST API reference is available also. And you can see we have it very well detailed from authentication to a detailed reference guide of different functions and calls. All right. So now let's go back to the portal. I showed you the default view here, right? So now let me show you what you see if you take a look at the volume information. So I'm just going to, and what you'll notice here is you see whether it's online or offline. You can see the capacity. Of course, you see what network it's tied to. Let me close all of these things that I have snoozing. Pause while I try to snooze notifications. You can also see the cost for your cloud volume, the estimated cost based on the capacity, the type of performance tier you selected, and your IOPS, all right? And then you can see here's my protection plan. In this particular volume, I'm creating snapshots twice daily, and I'm retaining 4, all right?
I have a question.
Yes.
Cost based on capacity.
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming virtually all of us are using thin provisioning. When you say, does it bill based on its potential capacity or on actual usage?
It actually bills on potential capacity. And the reason why, that's a really good question. And the reason why it's billed, when we do the calculation, it's billed on potential is because when you create a cloud volume, we need, because it's a multi-tenant environment, right? That we can guarantee you that space. Because the last thing you want to do is be paying for storage and then be in a position where you don't get your, in this particular case, this is a very small volume, it's 4 gigabytes, but you'd be pretty upset if all of a sudden your 4 gigabytes wasn't 4 gigabytes, right? So we always make sure to carve out the storage as it's created. And that's what we find is safe because we're running a multi-tenant environment or an as a service environment.
So you're paying by data size, not by storage capacity utilized, because you're taking that piece out. The whole reason to go to the cloud, you don't have to manage underlying infrastructure.
Yeah, so you may thin provision on top of it, but the back end isn't thin provision.
No, actually, it's the opposite. The back end is thin provisioned. because that's the default on our arrays, but we guarantee you the space. So we actually engineer Cloud Volumes in front of, we actually engineered that portion in front of the way our arrays work. All right. So if you go in and edit the volume, this is one of the interesting things I want to show you. You can increase size on the fly. So if you needed an extra, 5 terabytes, you can add them to this volume. If you needed an extra 40 gigs, you can add them to this volume. I'm just going to really quickly increase it to 50 gigs. And you can also increase the capacity, the performance on it as you require. And you'll notice here, your cost estimation changes, right? And it tells you why. So, no matter what you change here, you're always going to get an idea of what you're paying for, right? And you can also change your snapshot schedule as well as the snapshots to retain. Okay. Here's where your snapshots are listed, and it's very easy to select any of these snapshots and either restore the volume or clone the volume, right? So in this particular case, if I wanted to clone this volume, I would just click on the clone volume. I would select the IOPS I wanted to give that clone volume. I would select where I wanted to clone it. Really interesting here, you'll notice that this particular volume happens to be connected to AWS, right? However, I can take any of these snapshots and I can clone any clone that I make, just like if it were a new volume, I can move it to Azure, all right? All right. And then finally, here's where you would add your cloud VMs. This particular one is added to a single VM, but if I wanted to add it to a separate VM, like if I wanted to do some sort of clustered system in the cloud, I would just select the cloud VM that's available. Now you'll notice, and we'll go over this a little bit later when I go to create a volume, but you'll notice here that automatically I can see the machines that are in this particular that are registered to this particular cloud account. Completed this registering your cloud provider setup for my AWS account. For Azure, I've left it manual, and that's because during demos, I want to show folks both sides of the house. All that registering your cloud provider does is it allows you to essentially give read delegate access to your cloud account, your HPE Cloud Volumes account.
I think we lost you again, Diane.
That when you do go in to add like a cloud VM, you can easily just click from the drop-down list rather than having to type a manual entry where you're typing an actual IP address. All right.
Did you guys catch?
With that part, like I said, we're about to review it right now. So this will make a little bit more sense right now. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new cloud volume. And in this particular case, I'm actually going to map it and I'm going to connect it to this Azure machine. And it just so happens that I don't have my Azure account. Okay, I have not given my Azure account or this cloud account delegate access to my Azure account, if that makes sense. Select the region that I want to be in. Okay. For my particular account, you'll know you wouldn't realize this, but if you quickly look through here, there's a whole bunch of VPCs that are listed, not VPCs, VNets that are listed, but none of these are mine. They're part of this particular administrative account has several sub-accounts. And because I'm an administrative account, I can see all of the sub-accounts that have done the registering of the cloud provider. That's why I see all these networks. But I have not done this for this account. Meaning if I want to connect to my resource group in Azure at this point, I need to manually type it in. All right. So, oh my goodness, people. Give me 1 second to stop the Slack notifications. They're killing me. All right.
So something I will point out that I think is kind of interesting, when you use a cloud volume compared to some of the other standard types of storage that you get with Azure or AWS, it gives you the ability to cluster, because it truly is like shared storage the same way storage is shared on-prem. It gives you the ability to cluster application servers because it really is a SAN, right? You're connecting to it with iSCSI connections. And that ability to do it allows you then to take similar architectures to what you're used to designing on-prem and then move those into the cloud and continue with those. So a SQL cluster would be able to share storage in a different way than what you do if you're using standard Azure storage.
So you'll see here I have to actually type a manual entry. This is where I was at before, right? And then I'm going to go ahead and give the volume a name. I'm just going to call it Portland. I'm going to give it the size 500, and I'm going to give it some IOPS. I'm going to go with 1,000. Here we can choose our, just like with Nimble Storage, when you're able to choose, this is where we can.
What can we do? Diane, can you hear us?
I'm sorry, can you still hear me?
Yeah, we can now.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to choose other for the moment, just because I haven't decided what I'm going to use this volume for. So the volume type, you can use premium flash or you can use general purpose flash. What this means, this is your tier, right? Premium flash means that this volume is being created in a cabinet backed by all flash controllers. And then for general purpose flash, it's hybrid controllers. And you'll notice the cost is different for each one, right? Premium, since it's all flash, it's going to be a little higher. General purpose flash is going to be a little lower. All right.
So you're sharing that general purpose though with other customers, right? So you're normally saying, well, I'm going to put that flash in front because it's going to determine what I need to read fast. But if you're dealing with other customers, I realize
volume to be encrypted, right?
Or more. I mean, it will certainly, the performance will be more consistent. The whole trick, right, with cloud is you're having to leave that piece of the administration, right? Because when you choose a particular configuration, we're promising
what I've got here,
right, the performance associated with that. And so that's the Cloud Volumes team that has to do that and make sure that we're delivering that all the time. So I would say it should be really, really consistent, and you should definitely see a consistent uplift.
So hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. You're cutting in and out, but there were a couple questions I was answering, Diane.
Okay. So here is, I kind of stopped at this particular window because this is the summary of where we're at. So you can see the estimated cost of this particular volume based on the size, the IOPS, and other attributes that I've chosen, right? And it's going to be around $90 per month for a 500 gig volume, 1,000 IOPS provisioned, right? And at this point, the volume's been created. All right. And here's the volume information. Now, very quickly, to connect to Cloud VM, all I need to do is put the private IP address, which is, I know to be 10.4.2.4, right? And this is the internal IP address, not an external IP address. It's the internal IP address. And you can either attach and automatically connect or just attach. What's really interesting about doing attach is that we then tell you how to connect this cloud volume very simply to your
cloud server. So depending on what kind of server it's going to be, I'm going to talk over what she's doing because I've seen the demo a couple of times, right? There's a Windows option and there's a Linux option. And you click that, it's going to generate the script you need.
Yep. And then it tells you what to do next. First, you have to create a configuration, and that's essentially enabling the authentication from your VM to Cloud Volumes, right? And then it's also making sure that you have all of the hot fixes installed that you need, that multipathing is enabled, that iSCSI is set up correctly, et cetera, et cetera. So it actually does a lot of things when you create the config and set up authentication. All right, and then here is, I'm just going to copy this. I'm going to paste it here. And I'm going to go ahead and connect. We're having a Christmas party here, so there's kids running around if you hear daddy, daddy, daddy in the background. Hold on one second.
So I don't know if you guys caught that, but she's logged into her server in Azure right here. And so then she just takes the script, she puts it into PowerShell, it sets up the iSCSI commands. She's already made sure that like the fixes and stuff are installed according to the instructions that were in that. And then once she runs that in PowerShell, then she's going to have a drive, right, that's going to connect. It'll be an iSCSI connected drive.
Sorry
Dianne,
about that. I'm still here. It's just I had to. My child happens to be one of the ones here, so I had to tell her to please behave. Okay, so you saw that this worked, right? So we got a success, and very quickly, I'm just going to switch over to our disk management. Real quick. Okay. No, quédate con ella. And you can see that the disk is here, right? And you can initialize it, format it, connect to it, but there it is. I mean, if you're at this point, there's the device, and you can go forth and conquer. That's how easy it is to connect. Any questions so far?
That's what you do with storage.
Okay, yeah. So at this point, it initializes just like a local device. This should look I'll go ahead and finish it for you all, but this should look fairly familiar to those who have worked with volumes. All right. And once it's done formatting, it's ready for use. All right. Any questions so far? What time is it? 3:30.
Yeah.
So that's how we very quickly, we've just kind of gone over the portal. We've created a cloud volume. We've connected the cloud volume to compute. And now let's go back and revisit some of the other concepts that we talked about in the PowerPoint. So one of the things we talked about is replicating your data from on-prem to the cloud, right? So right now I'm going to switch to my on-prem host, right? And let me go ahead and actually make sure that I'm still logged into it. I'm going to do a quick refresh, make sure I haven't timed out to my Nimble storage array. This happens to be a virtual array that I use for testing, okay? And now I'm going to show you how quick and easy it is to set up replication to the cloud. So the first thing that you have to do is you have to set up a replication store, right? So I'm going to go back to HPE Cloud Volumes. Let me see if I've timed out here. And I have, so let me log back in. You'll notice now I'm logging into the portal from my on-prem host. Again, it's a global visibility, so I'm able to access this from anywhere. Okay. Right. And so the first thing you would do is you would create a replication store. Think of this like setting up your partner array, right? You would just create a new store. You can call it testing. You give it a capacity. Okay. You choose your tier, whether you want it to be premium or general purpose flash. All right. And then you give it a region, right? So in this particular case, I know that my region happens to be US test. And here's your price estimate. Okay. And now you have a destination, essentially. Okay. And then the next thing you do is you come over to your local array, and then you would go to replication partners, right? And you can see I already have a replication relationship here enabled to the cloud, right? But it's just as easy as clicking on the add button. For cloud replication, you type your username and password to the cloud volumes account.
Dianne, what version of the Nimble operating system do they have to be running in order to have the option?
You have to be on the GA release of 4.x at least, right?
So for those of you that are still running 3.7, it's time to upgrade.
Yep. Yeah, you have to be on GA of at least 4.x. And I forgot what version that is, because I don't really keep up with the releases. I'm always upgrading to the latest one because of where I work. And then of course I believe, and I think everyone recommends, that you should be at the 5.x release now.
I agree. You should be at 5x.
Yeah, there's just a lot of functionality and good stuff in it. So, all right. So at this point, you authenticate, and then you select the replication store that you want to go to. In this particular case, the reason why you're only seeing this REPL store here is because this particular array I have set to go to the production environment rather than the development environment. But which is why you're seeing, if I were to log into the cloudvolumes.hpe.com rather than this staging site that I'm in, because of, again, where I work, if I were to log into that other one, you would see this replication store as a destination, right? But then you would select it, then you would hit next, then you would, just like you would here, you would select an inbound location, hit next, and then create. And that's it, okay? And so here I've actually already got a replication partnership set up to, if I go back over to the Cloud Volumes portal, there we go. If I go back to my Cloud Volumes portal, you can see here, this is the replication store, TME staging. You'll notice that NCV Array is my partner, NCV Array 3, just so that you can see, this is NCV Array 3, right? It's my partner. And here happen to be the volume collections that I'm replicating to the cloud, and the number of volumes within each one. All right. And here are the replica volumes. These are the volumes that are within the volume collection. And at this point, I can select these. I can either connect them to the cloud, and all that means is that these are turned into full-fledged cloud volumes, right? So those are my replica volumes. If I need to, I can select one of these volume collections, and I can change the direction, right? So I can either stop replication. Right now it's an incoming relationship, or I can set it to outgoing, which means anything that's within this volume collection would be replicated back on-prem. Okay. So this this very much works a lot like you would work it between two arrays. In order to do the handover though, and the give back essentially, it's a little bit more of a manual process at this time. And there's reasons for that, but that is something that's on the roadmap that we're going to automate. But literally, if you were going to change the direction from incoming to outgoing, on premises first, what you would do is you would go to that volume collection and you would demote it first. That's the only extra step you would have to do. All right. Any questions? So that's how you get your data to the cloud. I mean, I wish I could say that it was a little bit more complicated. Actually, I don't, because I love that things are easy, but it is really that easy. So if I go now to this replica volume window, you'll notice these are all of the volumes that I've got replicated to the cloud.
Dianne, we got a question.
Mm-hmm.
So for the people in here who are using cloud services, whether it's AWS or Azure, I mean, how does this kind of replication or information transfer or even use case compare to what you guys see in there?
Can you repeat his question?
Is that a question for the room or for her?
For the room.
Yeah. So,
oh.
Yeah, Dylan was just asking out to the room, how does this process procedure and this service compare to some of the other services, cloud-based services that they're currently using?
Okay.
What do you guys think?
Well, for us, when we were looking at moving to Azure, is kind of in an application, like bringing the whole application to Azure at one time. So I could see where this would offer a lot of benefit in management. So if we're going to Azure, let's do it. The uplift is obviously much easier because you're shipping the storage this way, where you don't need to do that, and you just do application sets, and you just create storage on Azure. I'm more curious about like kind of a TCO report maybe for management, because for me it's either you lock yourself into one of the cloud platforms, or you lock yourself into a storage platform. So if you go with Nimble Cloud Volumes, it gives you some mobility between Azure and AWS. If you go with Azure storage, give yourself mobility with storage platforms. So for me, management would see that and say, well, which one's cheaper?
Right.
And something we can easily present to them for that.
Yeah. And I think,
Did she hear the answer?
Dianne, were you able to hear that?
I was able to hear it. Can you hear me still?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Yeah, so I was able to hear what he was talking about. So I guess what I'm understanding the question or the concern to be is basically modeling of total cost of ownership between, I guess, locking yourself into a storage vendor or locking yourself into a cloud platform, right? If that's what I'm hearing, right? And the short answer to that question is it really depends on your environment, right? So let me give you an example. If you're a Nimble storage customer and you're already using our storage, right? Then really it becomes a question of flexibility for you. If you're interested in going to the cloud, then if you use our service, you can choose any cloud that you want to go into the cloud with, right? You're already using our storage, so I don't think that the lock into a storage vendor really becomes the thing. Because if you wanted to, I mean, if you really wanted to, because of the way we've structured the system, you can take your data that you've replicated from Nimble Storage Array to the cloud, bring it back to Nimble Storage Array. And if you said, you know what, I don't want to use Cloud Volumes, you could, for example, buy the AWS on-prem appliance and lock yourself into AWS, right? So it at the very least, what we offer you is a choice. And I think that that's really important when you're doing a TCO, right? Because we give you the flexibility to not just choose your cloud, but choose how you want to get your data in the cloud. I do feel that we offer the better solution based on my testing as far as cost and administration, but that's something that I understand that everyone has to discover on their own. Yeah. But we hear that question a lot, how do I avoid locking myself into something, right? And unfortunately, I think that question is somewhat the hope that you don't lock yourself into something is somewhat romanticized, because if you go into cloud with AWS, you're using AWS's services, right? If you go into cloud with Azure, you're going into Azure services. So really, to me, it becomes a question of how easy is it to move, not a question of lock-in, because you're going to choose a service. The question becomes, where do I have the most flexibility in my mind? And that's what we tried to focus on with Cloud Volumes. So you have the flexibility to essentially go on-prem to cloud, back on-prem, and then if you want to choose something else to take you to the cloud, you can.
So yeah, it's a little bit of a different story. It's kind of a different way of looking at it, because you're looking at it from a flexibility standpoint, which is a lot of the same reason why a lot of you bought Nimble on-prem anyway, right? It was flexible to scale, and it was easy to use, right? There were a lot of pieces you just didn't have to worry about. You knew that whatever came down the road, the platform itself was flexible enough that you should be able to do what you need to do, whether it's add a different tier at a different speed, or add more capacity without disrupting workloads, or move to a new array very easily, right, without having to bring everything down, and it's all based on the platform. And so it's that same paradigm, right, that we're carrying here. Is we're creating something that's as ubiquitous as possible, that's just going to give you more options, so that then you can design what's going to be the best solution for you in the long run. I think strategically that's the paradigm that we've got as well.
Yeah, and that aligns with our company goals, right? Because if any of you had the chance to go to Discover and listen to Milan or listen to Antonio speak. But that's what, when we talk about the flexibility of your data and making the story about your data where you need it, that goes with our entire platform, right? That's part of the goal. And that is, we would be dead, honestly, as a storage company if we didn't think about things that way, right? Because that's where everything's going. It's going toward flexibility. It's going toward mobility. It's going toward where do I need to put my data to do something with it? And that's what we're, what we're building toward.
I do think, though, that the concept of TCO, especially as you're looking at moving toward cloud, even if it's not everything, right? Here's these 5 applications. We want to move this to the cloud. It could just be that the CTO went to a conference and that's what he heard about the whole time, and now he came back and he says, now we're going to the cloud. And so as far as building out a TCO, I think that is something that's very doable for those type of projects, right? I mean, because you can look and see how much does it cost to move, 500 gigs of data into AWS at this particular tier, right? What does it cost per month to store that much data? What does it cost if I now want to clone that data, right? Because I'm doing dev and I need a couple different copies. All of those same prices for sizes can all be done on the Nimble platform as well. And it's just done because they're offering different services in different places. One of the nice pieces is that ingress egress fee. That's just purely the cost of whatever your internet connection is, right? Because we aren't charging you for the data in, data out. And the multiple copies, because we're doing 0 copy clones, the same as you do on-prem, right? So you could theoretically have 5 copies of the same data set all cloned off the same original replica that you brought up there, but you're not paying anymore for those until you start changing the data, and then you're only paying for what the change is. If you clone that in AWS, you're paying for 3 full copies of that data. So when you start taking advantage of full enterprise features, the TCO starts to broaden, right? The difference between one solution compared to the other. If you just got 1 copy of data, it's just sitting there, you aren't going to utilize snapshots, you're not going to utilize cloning, you're never going to move it, well, then maybe there might be less benefit cost-wise, right, in doing that. And that's when you have to start looking at the bigger picture of, well, what's my flexibility? What are the other pieces around this, and what's my overall story for this data set?
Right.
Yeah, I think it'd be easy to Azure has an easy calculator where I could say, hey, this is how much it would cost. I don't know if you guys have similar calculators. I just wondered if you guys have done something like that, some white paper I could show my boss 5 times cheaper on the
Yeah. So we do have a cost calculator. I can send the link after this meeting is over. Right now it's in beta because we're still trying to make sure that we account for every little question that comes up. Somebody will say, oh, well, can you account for this cost? And we'll have to revamp it. But we do have a cost calculator that essentially what we do is we say, okay, tell me what you've got on premises. And you fill out a little bit of a spreadsheet. We also have a simple version of it where we just say, okay, estimate what you've got on premises. But if you wanted to go very detailed, it does have a spreadsheet front end. You fill that out and you literally press play. And it's going to tell you based on what type of copy data management you want as far as features. It's going to tell you really plainly how much it's going to cost to go with Cloud Volumes, and then how much it's going to cost to do the same thing in AWS and Azure. And the beautiful part about it is it's public, and all of this is public, right? So you don't have to take our word for it. You can go to AWS, Azure, and do your own cost analysis. But we do recognize that people want to know that question. What's my total cost of ownership? What is this going to cost? And so we are putting together the tools that make it easy to summarize that.
Cool. That sounds good.
That's what you're looking for. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I will. Dianne, if you share that link back to the team on the invite that I sent, then
Absolutely.
I'll distribute that out to the user group, and I'll post it up in the group too, so that you can access it from there.
All right.
Cool. Thank you.
So where to go to next? So I've shown you how to set up replication. Now we've got these replica volumes up here, right? We've replicated data to the cloud. And very quickly, I'm just going to go back one window. You can see your replica volumes either from your replication partnership, from your replication store, which is where we were just at, right? And here we saw the volume collections we were replicating as well as any replica volumes we had. Or you can go directly to a replica volumes window and see all of the replica volumes that you have that can come from any replication store. So here you see I have far more replica volumes because I'm getting them from more than one replication store. If you wanted to at this point, you can select one of these volumes select a particular point in time, right? And you can clone from that particular snapshot, all right? If you want to convert this volume to a cloud volume in general, so not a clone, but full-fledged first-class citizen, I showed you very quickly where you could do that from the replication stores window, right? You would just select the particular volume, right? And then you would just do connect to cloud, and automatically, boom, it connects it to the cloud, all right? And at that point, once you do a connect to cloud, it shows up just like a regular cloud volume, right? Just like these. And then you would just select it. You would choose the cloud VM you want to connect it to, et cetera, and away you go. All right. It looks like somebody's doing some maintenance in the staging. So any questions so far? This is it's a lot of information. We're running short on time for me. I'm pressing upon time where I've got to go.
Sure.
But here's the good news. I got a lot of videos. So I have in particular 3 videos that I'm about to publish. We have one already that we used as part of our SQL Server Linux Roadshow in case any of you are application users and are interested in getting application data to the cloud. There's a really nice video that I've already created which shows you how to get your data from an on-premises SQL Server instance to a SQL Server instance in the cloud using replication and quickly connecting it to, in this particular case, an Azure VM. I also have one for SQL Server clustering in either cloud. In the particular demo that I have put together, I've got one for AWS using SQL Server on Linux because it tackles a couple things that we get a lot of requests for. Right now, Azure does have a failover cluster instance type of solution using cluster shared volumes and replication on the back end on their own. It's not a true shared cluster, shared storage solution, but it is a solution. AWS doesn't have one at all. So we thought it would be really neat to just show how you can do it in AWS and to boot to show how you could do it with SQL on Linux, which is kind of the up and coming DevOps platform for Microsoft, right? So there's that volume. I also have, for those of you that are interested in containerization and data mobility in general, this kind of tackles both things. I have a video that shows data mobility from on-premises to Azure, then to AWS, and then back on-premises. I kind of jokingly call it the around the world video, but what it really showcases is that flexibility question, right? You know, where can I put my data? Where do I need it? I want to do something with it here, there, anywhere. Well, guess what? You know, we have a platform to do that. And it also showcases our container integration because I'm using, in that particular case, I happen to be using Docker Swarm, but our container provider works with all the major container orchestrators, right? So those are the 3 big things that I'm going to be pushing and publishing here in the next couple weeks, which can easily be shared with you guys, and we'll be sharing with the team at large. All right?
Cool.
And if people are interested in using it, I mean, we have 3 POCs now too, right?
Yep. Yeah, we can POC it. You just want to try it out and see how it's really going to work with what you've already got.
Absolutely. If you've got a Nimble storage array, you can POC this. You can POC it without a Nimble storage array. If you wanted to just test some cloud-only workflows, all you have to do is work with your account rep to do the POC request form, and that's it. We get you signed up.
Cool, Diana. I know that you got to cut off. We really appreciate your time. It's been really helpful.
I hope this gave you kind of a real quick view. And if you have any questions, feel free to shoot them to me and I'll answer them in email. And as soon as those videos are done, I'll kind of send them your way so you can see more about the flexibility that we have with Cloud Volumes. This is kind of just a show and tell of Cloud Volumes, not so much a show and tell of what you do with it, but oftentimes this is where you've got to start. Is this kind of like, here's how you create a Cloud Volume, right? The videos are definitely more tailored toward, okay, let's stick this in a workflow. Let's stick this in what people want to do. All right?
Perfect. Thanks so
okay.
much.
Well, you guys have been awesome. Any questions, again, let me know. And if you want to do a private POC as well, so if you decide you want to POC this and you need some help either from me or from any of our other cloud resources, chances are it'll be me. Then again, you work that through your cloud rep as well. Your rep as well. And then we set up some time and I help you get on Cloud Volumes and start using them.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
All right, everyone. Have a good day.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.